We learned that 75% of the players use performance mode on PlayStation over the fidelity mode. This according to Mark Cerny during the PlayStation 5 Pro presentation. Interesting stuff. But yeah, we have to talk about the system, of course. We learned some extra things after the event as well. A ton to go over. Also, we got an update on the dire Ubisoft situation and way more gaming news. So sit back and let's go. But first, the sponsor of this video, New World Eternum, that you can still try for free right now in the open beta before the official launch on October 15th. Maybe you already know the New World MMO. Well, Eternum is a spiritual successor to that, but as an action RPG that you can play completely solo or in co-op with up to 2 friends with crossplay on console and PC. You start by making your own character, can then choose an archetype to use the weapons you want in the dynamic skill-based combat that works really great with a controller, and you will of course throughout the game find a ton of new armor sets and weapons while exploring the huge open world. There are many side quests and activities, including the main story that has been updated with voice acting and cinematics. Again, you can try it for free right now if you are fast. Click the special link in the video description. I've been playing it as well and I'm trying to get the rewards that you can then take with you to the full game on October 15th. So thanks to Amazon for sponsoring the video, and now let's get back into the news. The Ubisoft situation got a bit worse since we talked about it last week. At that point, the stock was namely at €15 and now it's down to 11. And this is the lowest since 2014. It decreased 83% over the last 5 years, and this while other gaming publishers like EA increased 48% over the last 5 years and Take-Two 21%. There's now also a minority investor calling for the company to go private, so Ubisoft can basically restructure themselves, which simply means get rid of a lot of people, so that's not great. Now you could argue that the headcount is a problem at Ubisoft because they have 19,000 employees. For comparison, Take-Two has 12,000 and EA is also around that number. Well, they are making way more money. Now we should not take this letter from AJ Investments too seriously. They say things like Tommy Clancy as something that Ubisoft owns. Still, the fact remains though that investors are not happy with how things are going. Talked about the Outlaws sort of first weeks that have not been really great in terms of sales. We now got the PlayStation Store numbers and it was only number 5 in the US, where Star Wars is of course huge. It's outsold by sports games and GTA 5. Like, we know that game now sells around the 1.5 million units per month on every platform combined, so Star Wars Outlaws did not sell more than that. Star Wars Jedi Survivor, on the other hand, launched also at the end of the month and was still number 1 in the PlayStation Store. Like, a game with the budget of Outlaws has to do way better. There are many free-to-play initiatives, also of course did not work. They got many high-profile flops like Skull and Bones and remember Rainbow Six Extraction. I can go on, but yeah, something has to change over there. Although I also think that we still have not seen their big plan that they have started a few years ago in action yet. And this is a shift to focus on their biggest franchises, like Assassin's Creed Shadows will be the start of the Animus Hub, where they will release way more Assassin's Creed titles that should all offer different gameplay experiences. They want a single player and multiplayer Far Cry offering out next year. Ghost Recon could be big if they learn from Breakpoint, as there's still a big audience for that series. Like, if come next year or early 2026 things have not turned around for Ubisoft, then they are in big trouble. But again, let's wait and see if this plan will actually work, and hopefully it will turn things around. Like, totally good to be critical of course, but actively rooting for a gaming company to go under is very short-sighted, as if that would be good for the gaming industry. So one more thing I wanted to highlight from this open letter from the investment firm is that they say, yo Ubisoft, make Watch Dogs again, that will make you a ton of money. Well, we learned this week that filming wrapped up for the Watch Dogs movie. Yes, it's happening. It will star Tom Bliff, lead actor in that recent Hunger Games film, and Zoe Wild from Talk to Me. I'm not sure where we can watch it, if it will be in theaters or on streaming services. I will keep you up to date here. But yeah, we don't know about a Watch Dogs game that is currently in development, and we have no rumors or whatever as well. Really seems that Legion was kind of the nail in the coffin, at least for now. But I do think that maybe going for a more Mafia approach, so maybe a more linear, narrative-driven game, still in an open world, but without really open world exploration, that might work. That's why I really like the Bloodline DLC for Legion, for example, which was way more focused on the narrative. Of course, your takes on the future of Watch Dogs, what you would like to see in the comments down below. If you want a more in-depth video on the whole Ubisoft situation, let me know as well. Now, let's look at some other news, of course, including the PlayStation 5 Pro. Don't forget to leave a like, that would really help me out, and subscribe, because we post one of these every Sunday. Now, let's talk about the big elephant in the room, the PlayStation 5 Pro. This was my reaction to the price reveal for if you missed it. Oh my god! $800!
Are you okay?
800! Like, no two ways about it. This is an insane amount of money to ask for a console without a disk drive, even with the upgraded 2TB SSD. Especially the pricing in countries outside of the US is crazy. Like, €800 equals almost $900. 700 pounds sterling is $918. So we are paying way more in those regions, which is very likely the result of no competition. Like, the market share of Xbox is relatively low outside of the US, so Sony can get away with asking these prices while they have to stay more competitive in America, which is also why the $50 price increase we have seen for the base model was not in that market. Now, there are many things to discuss regarding this new hardware and presentation, but I think an important one is that Sony just created a new reality where the most hardcore PlayStation fans are going to skip a new console, which was kind of unthinkable before. Of course, if you use your console every week and play many hours, you want to upgrade to better hardware when it's available, because that is what you've always done. But at this price, it's very hard to justify, and I think we just have to accept the fact that it's totally okay to stick with the console you currently have. Like, one way of looking at the PS5 Pro presentation is that they basically made the launch PS5 with a disk drive way more valuable by pricing the digital-only PS5 Pro so high. Like, the presentation did not do a very good job of selling the system. Like, everyone who is in the market for the PS5 Pro has already finished the games that they showed, because those are the exclusives why you would play on PlayStation to begin with. And never did I, while playing Ratchet & Clank or Spider-Man 2, think, whoa, this game looks bad. Not to mention the comparison shots that they used that showed minimal improvements, and also to things like the audience in the opening level of Ratchet, something you simply don't focus on while playing the game. Now, there have been games, especially this year, where I was like, damn, this looks bad on performance mode. Especially Final Fantasy VII Rebirth jumps to mind. Like, every time I entered a new area, I would switch back to the fidelity mode to see the beauty that I was missing out on for the higher frame rate. Well, seems like the PlayStation 5 Pro will get a new Pro graphical mode that will combine the two, so you get the visuals from the fidelity mode while playing at 60 FPS from the performance mode. That is the promise of this new hardware, which is very exciting on paper, but that doesn't mean that all PS5 Pro games will run at 60 FPS. According to Digital Foundry, if the game already has a 60 FPS performance mode on the regular PS5, then the PS5 Pro will be able to improve the visuals thanks to the new PSSR AI technology and also add better ray tracing. But if the game is stuck at 30 on the standard PS5, then the PS5 Pro likely won't be able to create a performance mode because it has almost the same CPU. Now, some games like Dragon's Dogma 2, that was also part of the presentation, have an uncapped frame rate, so it might mean that those titles will have a higher frame rate on the PS5 Pro. But the big one, GTA 6, has a high chance of still being locked at 30 FPS on PS5 Pro, just like any other Rockstar console game at launch, with Red Dead Redemption 2 still being stuck at 30 on the newer consoles. Now, we did learn that the PS5 Pro will feature a game boost that will stabilize or improve backwards compatible PS4 games, with Sony noting that this can apply to more than 8,500 backwards compatible PS4 titles playable on PS5 Pro. Although, of course, side note, if you own the disc version of these PS4 games, you have to buy the disc drive to be able to use them on the PS5 Pro. I look back at the PS4 Pro reveal from 2016, and it's wild how in that presentation they actually showed a lot of upcoming games and how they were utilizing the new hardware. Things like Horizon that would launch just 7 months later. Spider-Man 1, Days Gone that were more than 2 years away. For the PS5 Pro, they only showed old games, with most of them also playable on PS4 or that released at the launch of the PS5. Like, why not show Death Stranding 2 that is incoming? So this is the list of supported games that we know so far, and only Assassin's Creed Shadows is not out yet. And real quick, looking at this list by the way, it's of course obvious that the Sony exclusives are going to support the hardware, but for multi-platform titles, these companies have to justify of course spending resources on an upgraded version. So if we focus on these titles for a second, we see Alan Wake 2 that still gets a second DLC, AC Shadows is of course new, the Crew Motorfest and the First Descendants are also still getting new content. And then we see Dragon's Dogma 2 and Hogwarts Legacy. I really think this makes the DLC rumors we have for those games way more likely. Like, why spend budget on a PS5 Pro patch if you have nothing new to sell to your audience? Again, high chance that they will announce these DLCs soon and maybe launch it around the PS5 Pro on November 7th. Pre-orders, by the way, open on September 26th at PlayStation Direct and later at other retailers. Like, let me know if you will get one. Another quick thought that I had, maybe Sony is doing some sort of 3D chest where they don't want to be the ones talking about the power of this hardware and showing like good side-to-side comparisons, because it might hurt the sales of the regular PS5 if they're basically saying, look, this new console we made is way better. It will at least be fascinating when people like the before mentioned Digital Foundry get their hands on it. So far, it's the promise of that combined quality and performance mode and also the history of support that we had for PS4 Pro that will sell this system, which is a really hard ask for that price. And the fact remains that it's kinda wild that they are launching this big new piece of hardware for that price without much word on future games we will be playing on it. I hope this changes soon at the State of Play that seems to be happening on Tuesday, September 24th, according to Jeff Grubb in his podcast. He has been right many times before, so I totally believe this. And that would be just before Tokyo Game Show and also 2 days before the PlayStation 5 Pro pre-orders open, so the perfect timing. But yeah, a little later than the first day that I was hoping for. We'll of course keep you posted and share more predictions for the State of Play in likely next week's Sunday video or in a separate video if it suddenly gets announced. This is Star Wars Jedi Survivor running on PS4 Pro, and it doesn't look that bad, but one thing that worries me is that they are not showing any of the exploration gameplay on Kobo, where even the newer consoles had quite some issues. Like that the game can run the more linear levels that we also saw in Fallen Order, sure, but what about that village where we had many frame drops? I'm sure Digital Foundry will look at this PS4 and Xbox One version as it comes out on September 17th. Quite some new versions of my favorite games are launching this coming week, but more on that in a moment. First, we need to talk about Xbox. Microsoft cut even more gaming jobs, 650 to be exact, mostly corporate and support roles at Activision Blizzard that have likely become redundant after the acquisition. Of course, the reality of one major company taking over another. The Verge spoke to several Xbox employees and noted that the continued cuts, as we of course had 1900 jobs lost earlier this year at Xbox, some are worried about potential cuts to studios in the future because right now no games were cancelled, and most employees I've talked to are straight up confused about Microsoft's overall gaming strategy. With The Verge noting that the reason behind bringing games to PlayStation in particular is one thing that Microsoft is struggling to explain to employees, why that is smart. Sources tell me that Microsoft is banking on Call of Duty on Game Pass to shift the needle for its subscription numbers and help grow its gaming revenues. There's a lot riding on this Black Ops 6 launch as the first Microsoft-owned Call of Duty release. It's going to prove if the Game Pass strategy was the right one. Now, the game will totally be huge as it had the biggest beta for a Call of Duty ever, but will people subscribe to Game Pass to play it without it hurting the overall game sales? Will be very interesting to follow. I saw this, by the way, Assassin's Creed Syndicate might get a 60 FPS patch on PS5 and Xbox Series. A now deleted tweet by Ubisoft Latam hinted at this. Would be nice for people who maybe want to go back to that game and the dual protagonist before Shadows. I will keep you posted here. Yes, again, this coming week we have some pretty interesting launches, a lot of my favorite games from the recent years are coming to new platforms. So again, Jedi Survivor on September 17th for PS4 and Xbox One. On that same day, Final Fantasy 16 comes to PC. I really hope this one finds a bigger audience, because that game deserves all the success, although the fact that God of War Ragnarok will be launching 2 days later on PC won't help, of course. No, but awesome, more people get to play these amazing games. I'm all for it. I will keep you posted on the State of Play announcements that we might get this week, and on September 19th you can expect a hands-on preview of Dragon Age: The Veilguard. We have a video up telling you if the game is any good after having played it already, and there will be other previews, of course, on the internet as well. Like, you don't want to miss that, especially if the game is not on your radar yet. It, of course, released on October 31st already, so it's very close. And we got more other videos with, of course, a gaming news roundup like this at the end of the week. So subscribe to not miss anything. A like would really help me out. And don't forget to try the New World beta if it looks interesting to you. And check out my recent Assassin's Creed Shadows video with a ton of new footage and info. You can watch that by clicking on the screen. I will speak to you very soon. Goodbye.